It was a quiet afternoon on a busy city street. People were moving in every direction, some rushing to catch buses, others stopping to check their phones, and a few just enjoying the warm sunlight. In the middle of all that everyday noise stood a man who looked completely ordinary. Simple clothes, relaxed posture, calm eyes. Nothing about him suggested danger, power, or anything out of the ordinary. That man was Bruce Lee. He wasn't trying to attract attention. He wasn't in a hurry. He was simply walking, taking in a moment, breathing slowly, completely at ease. To most people, he looked like just another face in the crowd. Quiet, polite, respectful. Someone you would never expect to be part of any kind of dramatic situation. But across the street, a small group of bikers had just parked their motorcycles. Their engines went silent, but their presence felt loud. Leather jackets, heavy boots, and confident body language made them stand out immediately. They were laughing, talking loudly, and drawing attention without even trying. Their eyes scanned the street, almost like they were looking for something or someone to react to. That's when one of them noticed Bruce. He nudged his friend and pointed subtly. A few of them glanced over. At first, it was just curiosity. Then came the smirks. To them, Bruce looked quiet, reserved, and harmless. Someone who wouldn't push back. Someone who probably wouldn't say much at all. They whispered to each other, amused, as if they had already decided what kind of person Bruce was, without knowing a single thing about him. Bruce, meanwhile, continued walking calmly, completely unaware of the attention he was getting. His face showed no concern. His steps were steady. His mind seemed focused, peaceful, and clear. No one around could have guessed what was about to happen next. No one knew that behind that calm expression was a man who had spent years mastering discipline, control, and self-awareness. A man who believed that true strength was quiet and that real confidence didn't need to be loud. And as the bikers slowly began moving in his direction, the air around them subtly changed. Something was about to unfold, and what Bruce did next would surprise everyone watching. Bruce continued walking at the same calm, steady pace, unaware that the mood behind him had shifted. The bikers were no longer just watching. They had begun moving. Their boots made soft, heavy sounds against the sidewalk as they slowly closed the distance. Their laughter lowered into quiet murmurs, and their playful tone faded into something more serious. A few nearby pedestrians noticed the change in energy and started paying closer attention. One of the bikers stepped slightly ahead of the group. He adjusted his jacket, lifted his chin, and called out in a casual, but clearly challenging tone. "Hey, excuse me." Bruce stopped. He turned around slowly, his expression relaxed and respectful. "Yes," he replied calmly. The biker smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind that carried more confidence than kindness. He looked Bruce up and down, as if studying him, then nodded toward the empty space behind him. "You look like you're in the wrong place," he said lightly, though his words didn't feel light at all. Bruce didn't react. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply answered politely. "I'm just walking through," he said. "Is there a problem?" A couple of the bikers behind him chuckled. One whispered something to another, and they shook their heads, amused. The lead biker took a step closer, not aggressively, but close enough to feel uncomfortable. "No problem," he said slowly. "Just making sure you know who usually hangs around here." Bruce nodded slightly, still calm. "I understand," he replied. "I don't plan to stay long." His respectful tone seemed to surprise them. They were expecting fear, anger, or at least discomfort. Instead, Bruce remained completely composed. More people began to notice. A woman standing near a cafe window paused mid-sip. A man waiting for a bus tilted his head, sensing tension. A few people quietly reached for their phones, not to stir trouble, but because moments like this often turned unpredictable. The bikers exchanged glances. Their confidence grew when they realized Bruce wasn't reacting the way they expected. One of them stepped beside the first biker and spoke in a louder voice. "You're very calm," he said. "Not many people are." Bruce met his eyes briefly and then looked away politely. "Staying calm helps avoid misunderstandings," he said. That response drew more quiet laughter from the group. They weren't threatening him openly. They weren't shouting. But their tone, their closeness, and their body language made the situation uncomfortable enough that everyone nearby could feel the tension rising. Bruce remained steady. His breathing stayed slow. His shoulders stayed relaxed. He wasn't there to challenge anyone. He wasn't there to impress anyone. He simply stood his ground calmly, choosing respect over reaction. The crowd continued to grow more attentive, because something about this quiet man made it clear he was not as simple as he seemed. The street felt quieter now, even though cars were still passing and people were still moving around. It was one of those moments where everything seems normal on the outside, but something tense is building just beneath the surface. The bikers stood closer to Bruce than before. Their casual laughter had softened into low voices and half-smiles. To anyone watching carefully, it was clear that the mood had shifted. Bruce stayed in the same relaxed position. His hands rested naturally by his sides. His posture remained upright, but loose. His face showed no irritation, only patience. One of the bikers slowly stepped forward. "You're very calm," he said again, this time more slowly. "Most people get nervous by now." Bruce replied politely, "I believe staying calm helps everyone think clearly." That answer seemed to amuse them even more. Another biker moved closer, standing slightly behind the first, creating a quiet but noticeable circle around Bruce. They weren't touching him, and they weren't raising their voices, but their presence alone was enough to make nearby pedestrians pause. A young couple walking by slowed down. An older man near a shop doorway crossed his arms. A few people subtly held their phones at chest level, just in case. Then something small but important happened. One biker gently reached out and placed his hand on Bruce's forearm. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't aggressive, but it crossed an invisible boundary. Bruce looked down at the hand for a brief second, then slowly lifted his eyes to meet the biker's face. His expression didn't change, but his focus sharpened. "Please," Bruce said softly, "I'd appreciate some personal space." The biker smiled lightly. "Relax. I'm just talking." Bruce nodded once. "I understand. Still, I prefer distance." For a moment, no one spoke. The city sounds returned, cars passing, a bus stopping, distant conversations, but the tension between them remained thick. The biker withdrew his hand, but he didn't step back. Instead, he leaned slightly closer. "You're very confident for someone walking alone." Bruce took a slow breath. "Confidence doesn't come from being loud," he replied. "It comes from being aware." The words weren't confrontational. They were calm, but they carried weight. A ripple of quiet whispers passed through the nearby crowd. People could sense that this situation was no longer casual. Something deeper was unfolding. Behind Bruce, a woman gently pulled her friend aside. "Let's stay and watch," she whispered. "Just in case." Bruce didn't turn. He remained focused, respectful, and centered. The bikers exchanged glances. Their relaxed amusement began shifting into curiosity. They were starting to realize that Bruce wasn't reacting the way most people would. One of them finally shrugged and said lightly, "You're interesting, man." Bruce gave a small nod. "Thank you." The response only added to the mystery around him. Now, the circle around Bruce felt more defined. Not threatening, but deliberate. And in that quiet, steady moment, Bruce's calm presence began to change the energy of the entire street. People weren't just watching anymore. They were waiting to see what this quiet man would do next. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The street was still busy, but inside that small circle of people, everything felt unusually quiet. Even the bikers seemed to pause, as if they were trying to figure out what to make of the man standing calmly in front of them. Bruce remained exactly where he was. His shoulders were relaxed. His hands rested naturally by his sides. His breathing was slow and steady, almost rhythmic. He didn't look angry. He didn't look afraid. He simply looked centered. A light breeze moved through the street, lifting a few leaves across the pavement. Somewhere nearby, a bus let out a soft hiss as it stopped to pick up passengers. Life continued, but everyone watching could feel that this moment was different. One of the bikers broke the silence with a small laugh. "You're really not bothered, are you?" Bruce offered a gentle smile. "I believe staying calm helps people make better choices." The biker raised his eyebrows slightly. unsure how to respond to that. Another biker leaned closer, studying Bruce's face. "You talk like someone who's been through a lot." Bruce nodded once. Life teaches everyone in different ways. A few bystanders quietly exchanged looks. Some stepped a little closer, not to interfere, but because curiosity had fully taken over. The atmosphere was no longer casual. It had become something almost ceremonial, like everyone was witnessing the opening of an important chapter in an unexpected story. One person whispered, "There's something different about him." The bikers weren't laughing as much now. Their tone had softened. Their posture wasn't as loose. It was as if they were beginning to sense that Bruce wasn't someone they could easily read or underestimate. Bruce slowly shifted his stance, not in a threatening way, but in a natural, balanced position. His feet adjusted slightly. His posture became more aligned, more grounded. It was a small movement, but everyone noticed. The street seemed to hold its breath. "Are you trained in something?" one biker asked, half joking. Bruce didn't answer directly. He simply smiled again. "I believe in discipline and awareness." That response sparked quiet murmurs among the crowd. Someone near the cafe window lifted their phone a little higher. Another person leaned forward slightly, eyes fixed on Bruce. The bikers exchanged glances, unsure whether to keep their playful tone or step back. Their confidence wasn't gone, but it wasn't the same anymore. It had changed into curiosity, respect, and perhaps uncertainty. Bruce's calm presence seemed to reshape the entire mood of the street. Where there had been light teasing, there was now quiet attention. Where there had been playful confidence, there was now measured caution. No one could explain it, but everyone could feel it. This was no longer about random strangers crossing paths. It felt like the moment before a lesson, the kind of lesson people remember. Bruce took another slow breath. His eyes remained soft, but alert. His expression carried no challenge, only readiness. A nearby pedestrian whispered, "Something's about to happen." And even though Bruce hadn't raised his voice, hadn't taken a step forward, hadn't made any dramatic move, everyone knew the situation had reached a turning point. Because the quietest moments are often the most powerful ones. The quiet tension that hung in the air felt heavier now. The bikers stood in place, no longer laughing as freely as before. Their playful tone had faded into something more cautious. They weren't sure what had changed, but they could feel it. The calm man in front of them was not what he appeared to be. Bruce remained centered. His feet were grounded. His breathing stayed slow and even. He looked at the group with calm eyes, not as opponents, but simply as people. One of the bikers finally spoke again. "You're very relaxed," he said. "Most people would be nervous by now." Bruce nodded gently. "Being calm helps me think clearly," he replied. "And thinking clearly helps avoid problems." The biker tilted his head slightly. "Avoid problems?" he repeated, almost amused. Bruce's voice remained soft, but steady. "Yes. No one here needs trouble. We're all just passing through our day." There was a short pause. A few people in the crowd quietly nodded, as if they agreed. Another biker stepped forward slightly. Not too close, just enough to make his presence known. "So what are you saying?" he asked. Bruce took a slow breath. "I'm saying respect keeps situations simple." Those words didn't sound dramatic. They weren't loud, but they were firm. The bikers exchanged glances again. The moment had shifted. They were no longer teasing. They were listening. Bruce continued calmly. "Everyone has a story. Everyone has struggles. We don't need to add to them." The street remained quiet. Even passing cars seemed to fade into the background. People nearby leaned in almost instinctively. The atmosphere felt less like a confrontation and more like a lesson unfolding in real time. "You talk like a teacher," one biker said with a faint smile. Bruce returned a gentle smile. "Life teaches all of us," he replied. Another pause followed. The bikers weren't stepping back, but they weren't pressing forward either. Something about Bruce's calm authority had reshaped the space around him. The crowd could sense it. A woman near the cafe whispered, "He's not afraid at all." A man near the bus stop murmured, "He's in complete control." Bruce stood quietly, giving no sign of tension. He wasn't raising his voice. He wasn't moving dramatically. He was simply present. and that presence carried more weight than any loud reaction ever could. One of the bikers finally shrugged and said, "You're different." Bruce nodded. "We're all different." The simple reply drew a few soft smiles from the crowd. The bikers slowly began to step back, not because they were ordered to, but because the energy had changed. Their body language loosened again, but this time with less arrogance and more awareness. The street slowly started to breathe again, but everyone watching could tell this moment wasn't over. It had only just reached its turning point, because something important was about to be revealed, and whatever happened next would make this encounter unforgettable. Just as the tension began to settle, a new voice broke through the quiet. "Wait, is that Bruce Lee?" The words didn't come from the bikers. They came from someone in the small crowd that had slowly formed around the scene. Heads turned, that a young man near the cafe entrance leaned forward, squinting slightly. "I think that's Bruce Lee," he repeated, louder this time. A ripple moved through the people standing nearby. A few of them quickly pulled out their phones, not to stir trouble, but out of sudden recognition and surprise. "Bruce Lee," someone whispered. "No way," another replied. "It really looks like him." The bikers exchanged confused looks. They hadn't realized anyone famous was standing in front of them. To them, Bruce had just seemed like a quiet, ordinary passerby. One biker frowned slightly. "What are they talking about?" he muttered. The crowd grew more animated. "That's him," an older man said softly. "The martial arts legend. The actor. The philosopher." The name spread quickly through the group, carried by quiet excitement rather than noise. Bruce didn't change his expression. He didn't correct anyone. He didn't step forward to confirm or deny it. He simply stood there, calm as ever. The bikers slowly became aware that the mood around them had shifted completely. The crowd was no longer just watching out of curiosity. There was now admiration in their eyes. One biker scratched the back of his neck. "So, you really him?" Bruce smiled politely. "I'm just a person," he replied gently. That simple answer only deepened the respect in the air. People whispered among themselves about his movies, his teachings, and his reputation for discipline and self-control. No one shouted. No one rushed forward. It was as if everyone instinctively understood that this was a moment to observe quietly. The bikers began to shift their stance. Their shoulders relaxed. Their tones softened. They weren't defensive anymore. They were thoughtful. One of them finally spoke, his voice quieter than before. "We didn't mean any trouble." Bruce nodded kindly. "I know," he said, "and I appreciate that." The tension that had once felt heavy now seemed to dissolve slowly, like fog lifting in the morning light. A woman in the crowd whispered, "He handled that with so much class." Another added, "That's real confidence." The bikers took a small step back, not out of fear, but out of respect. They nodded slightly, acknowledging the man in front of them in a way they hadn't before. Bruce returned the nod. No dramatic gestures, no raised voices, just calm understanding. The street slowly returned to its normal rhythm. People resumed walking. Cars continued passing. Conversations picked back up, but the energy remained lighter than before. Before turning away, Bruce offered one final gentle reminder. "Respect makes everything easier," he said softly. And in that moment, everyone watching understood. They hadn't just witnessed a quiet encounter. They had witnessed a powerful lesson in humility, calm, and true strength. By the next morning, the quiet street where everything had happened felt completely normal again. People walked by, cafes opened their doors, and traffic moved as usual. But online, the story was spreading fast. Short clips from the encounter had begun appearing across social media. Not because anything loud or chaotic had happened, but because of how calmly and respectfully everything had been handled. Viewers were struck by how a tense moment had turned into a powerful lesson without raised voices, harsh words, or disrespect. Comments started pouring in. "So calm. So humble. This is how real confidence looks." He didn't need to prove anything. People shared the videos with friends, tagging family members and leaving thoughtful messages. Some said the moment reminded them to stay patient. Others said it encouraged them to respond to challenges more thoughtfully in their own lives. What touched people the most wasn't the situation itself. It was how it ended. No one was embarrassed publicly. No one was shamed. No one was pushed aside. Instead, the moment became a reminder that dignity and respect can quietly change the direction of any situation. A local page wrote, "A small encounter, but a big message." Another post read, "This is what leadership looks like, calm, respectful, and aware." Bruce never posted about it himself. He didn't make any statements. He didn't turn it into a headline. He simply continued his day like it had been any other. But the people who witnessed it in person would remember it for a long time. They would remember how the atmosphere shifted, how calm changed the room, how patience reshaped the moment. A man who had been standing near the cafe later said, "I realized that true strength isn't loud. It's steady." And that quiet truth spread faster than any dramatic moment ever could. Soon, the short video clips began appearing in motivational pages, personal development groups, and community channels. People didn't just watch, they reflected. They shared it with captions like, "Choose calm, choose respect, choose awareness." The story turned into more than just an encounter. It became a reminder that even in uncertain moments, your response can shape everything. If you believe that calm confidence and respect can change situations, type respect in the comments and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this. Because sometimes the quietest strength is the most powerful.